Welcome to the first of maybe many Celtic Music Spotlights, courtesy of the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast and the Celtic Music Magazine. My name is Mark Gunn, the Celt Father. I'm a Celtic musician and host of the Irish and Celtic Music Podcast, and I am here with Jesse Ferguson, a Celtic musician out of Canada, eh? Sorry, I have to do that. How you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing pretty well, Mark. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, tell me about yourself. Tell me what you do, a little about your music and such. Start it open, broad.
Well, I consider myself mostly a Celtic folk musician. I also do a fair bit of songwriting in a sort of folk slash classic rock kind of style, but I guess my main focus has been Celtic music, folk music for the last, say, 7 or 8 years, something like that. So I grew up in a musical family. My dad plays guitar and my mom plays the violin a little bit, and so I grew up playing music with him primarily. And he did a lot of old folk stuff, and he had a bit more of a country focus than I do. But so I grew up in a very musical background, and then as I hit teenage years, I was going to the bars and got really into Celtic rock, like fusion of that kind of stuff. And so that's how I sort of launched off into a specifically more of a Celtic direction.
Huh.
And
So now, and so what was the last thing you said?
I haven't looked back since then.
Good. So did you ever pursue the Celtic rock angle?
In my album, I have done a little bit of some things that I guess are a bit more on the rock side, but the last few years it's been hard to sort of have a band, so it's hard to do Celtic rock by yourself. I mean, it's more of a band sound, and so whenever I play, I usually play an acoustic guitar by myself. So I guess it's something that I'm interested in exploring a bit more once my personal situation gets to the point where a band is a bit more realistic in terms of practice time and jam space and things like that.
Yeah. So what got you into the folk aspect of it then? You just like the songs that you heard at the pub, or?
I think that was it. That was it. I mean, I liked the idea that you could take something that was some of these songs were, even hundreds of years old potentially, and you could make it relevant for today's audience. So I guess the thing that sort of turned my ear a bit was hearing these old songs with a more sort of rock and roll influence, or even punk rock. Some of the guys were doing around my community, and I thought that was pretty neat to take something old and make it new again. So that's what sort of got me interested in it from that perspective. Because in high school, I was listening to punk rock and alternative rock and things like that mostly. But then I heard this fusion stuff, and it really sort of it appealed to me.
Yeah. So now you started a YouTube. When did you start your YouTube channel?
It was back in 2007, so I think 7 years ago now.
Wow. So you've been doing it for a long time. Now, what exactly? It seems like you've done really well with your YouTube channel. I'm kind of curious how that came together and works.
Well, I'm quite proud to say I'm up to, I think, about 3.5 million views on my YouTube channel now. And I started off, I didn't have as good a camera, so I was just doing sort of lesser quality videos in terms of the production values, and I was doing them in my kitchen primarily. And people sort of liked that idea of the kitchen party thing, but then eventually I started re-recording those videos with a better camera setup and better editing software. And things evolve on YouTube, and they allow you to upload larger videos and things like that. So over the first few years of videos, I re-recorded most of them to the current channel. Mark Gunn, open capture smile.
Oops, sorry.
Should I enable that?
Yeah, sure.
And so anyway, it's been going along ever since. I try to do at least once a month something and learn a new song. That's one thing that I always love to do is I sort of become obsessed with a new song, and I can't get it out of my mind until I've learned it. I'm sure you're another person who knows hundreds of songs in the traditions.
Yeah.
You must have the same problem that I do. It's nice because you learn all these songs, but I sort of will lie in bed going over the lyrics and things like that. It's almost like an obsessive compulsive thing until it seems that until I record it, I can't move on to the next one. So I'm sort of it's sort of self-serving in that way, uploading the new content, because otherwise I'll just have this whatever song that's currently in my mind percolating around there.
Yeah, I've heard that. That's I done that too often, and it's frustrating actually for me. I don't know about you, but to me it's like, get that out of my head.
Definitely, yeah, I know the feeling, and it drives my wife nuts too because I'll just sing that song over and over while I'm doing the dishes and
Yeah,
walking along the street and things like that.
yeah, yeah. So how's this? Do you have a lot of interaction with your fans on YouTube? Or do most of your fans come to YouTube, or they find your YouTube channel, or are they largely offline and such? And if they do they stay on YouTube? Do they interact with you a lot? How's that work?
Generally, I would say most of my fans do come through YouTube first, and then they would potentially buy a CD or something like that off CD Baby. But like I've played a variety of like say large festivals like Celtic festivals, Highland Games, and things like that in Canada, and I get a big reaction there. But I'd say most of my dedicated fans come through the YouTube channel. And as far as interactions go, I mean they send me messages and comments through the YouTube channel, and some of them will visit my personal website or Facebook page and connect that way too. But I find that not just like YouTube, but I find that the new way they've done it with Google Hangouts, I think the number of comments has gone down just because people don't want to have to sign up for Google Plus or whatever. I mean, they're not quite sure how the comments work now or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally, I'm someone who's thought the old system was good, and why change it if it ain't broke? Don't fix it. But they're always trying to add new features, which I guess is good, but
Yeah.
I'm sort of an old-fashioned guy when it comes to I know how to use YouTube. I want it to stay the same for a while.
Yeah. No, I am curious a little bit about your setup and how you got all your YouTube stuff set up. I mean, do you have a professional lighting and professional camera or what?
Nope. My setup is really minimal, and people often ask me about that, and they're surprised at how minimal it is. It's actually just a small digital handheld camera. It's a Canon ELPH ELPH, Canon ELPH. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the model number is, but it's just a standard Canon digital camera, and so it's the same one I use to take photos of my kid and things like that. And that's the mic I use. So whenever I record CDs, I use a proper like studio type sound set up. But for my YouTube videos, I just record with that, and the sound seems great. The video is high definition, and
Yeah.
I only paid I think $300 for it at Walmart, something like that. It's not a particularly expensive camera.
Do you do a lot of editing?
No. Usually I just on the camera itself I just trim the end. So I use the timer to start it off, so I don't have to trim the beginning, and I just trim the end. And all the annotations I just do through Google itself through the YouTube function.
Okay.
And that just seems to make it a lot faster and quicker to get the videos up that way.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I looked at the Google Hangouts platform itself, was because look, it's done. As soon as this is over, it's posted live, for better or worse. Now, you've been doing music for a number of years now. Are you doing music full time?
Nope. Up until this year, I was teaching full time at Cape Breton University as a university lecturer, and so now we've moved back home to Ontario, which is where we're from. And my wife is teaching full-time, so I'm doing online courses for that university still, part-time, and then taking over as sort of primary child caregiver for my son.
Okay, so you have one child, one son?
One son, yeah.
How old is he?
He's 4.5, yeah, just started school, so it's an interesting time for us. Lots of fun all around.
Yeah, I hear that. My daughter's about to turn 4 next week, so it's a big challenge. Are you having as many problems with him saying no and wanting to be self-independent and talking back to you and such?
Well, he's a pretty well-behaved child, but he definitely, he's flexing his muscles a little bit more in terms of, wanting to be in charge. And I mean, the whole potty training thing was not that long ago, and so it's very much that independent spirit coming in, and it's a bit hard to let go sometimes.
Yeah, 4 seems a lot more difficult thus far. I mean, she's still at the end of 3, but it's everyone I've been talking to the last few days they're like, oh, 4, oh my gosh, So, hopefully it's not nearly as bad for you, but so how often do you play gigs out and around town?
Well, we just moved back a few months ago, so it's been hard getting sort of set up again. Like, it's interesting because I'm from Cornwall, which is where we live now,
Well, that's actually a question I need to ask you about. So Cornwall, when I first heard the Bard of Cornwall, I was thinking England.
Yeah, well, that's what a lot of people have thought. And at first, whenever I was doing the YouTube thing, that was sort of like a jokey sort of online handle. Because for a while, when I was doing, say, MSN or things like that, I would come up with, the Duke of Cornwall or the Earl of Cornwall or the Bard of Cornwall, and it was just sort of this sort of, sort of ironic, sort of jokey thing. But then whenever I did the YouTube channel, that was the handle I had, and it sort of people just sort of latched onto it. So I didn't want to change it at that point. People recognized it. But I knew that there were, actual real bards of Cornwall, England,
Right.
and that you can't sort of appoint yourself as a bard. I realized. Anyway, so hopefully people don't take it too seriously. But I have had some flack actually from some viewers on YouTube who thought I was from Cornwall, England, singing Irish rebel songs, and they thought, well, how the heck does that work, And so ever since, I've been quick to put in the description of all my videos, Cornwall, Ontario, Canada.
Oh yeah, I've noticed that when you were sending that information, I was like, ah, yes.
Yeah.
But my initial thought, yeah, for the longest time was Cornwall, England. So yes. Now back to the to your touring around town. You say you are playing a lot around town, or?
Whenever I was in Cape Breton, up before we moved just recently. And then before that in New Brunswick, Canada. So those are the Atlantic provinces that tend to have a lot of, Celtic scene and things like that. So there I was playing, at least once a month. In the summer, usually more like 2 or 3 a month. So that's sort of the frequency I like to get. Whereas since we moved back home, it seems like it's been harder to sort of get the contacts going a little bit. So I have a Celtic performance coming up in November, which is a big fundraising event for the Big Brothers and Big Sisters here in Cornwall. So that I'm looking forward to. But in terms of other things, I think it really picks up a lot more in the summer. So I sort of moved back home at a bad time. But I'm working on it actively.
Good. Have you checked out Concert Window?
No.
Concerts online. I know I talked to you way back in March about doing the St. Patrick's Day Internet concert. Which I want to do again next year. But yes, have you thought any more about on that stuff? Because I'd love to see them.
That'd be a great idea. Yeah, I think this time around maybe I'll give it a go. If you're still, you think you're right on your channel, or how does that?
Yeah, I'll send you information once I really get it going. So tell me about your fans. Do they love? How do they interact with you overall?
Well, I've had a lot of support. I mean, from people all over the world. I mean, the big areas would be the United States, Canada, the UK. Obviously, surprisingly, Germany has actually been a big source of viewers.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things about YouTube is you can see who is watching you from demographically. So they've been very very supportive of me, and like I said, ever since Google YouTube changed the way the comments work through the Google Plus system, it seems to have gone down in half the number of comments I get. I still get a lot of the thumbs up, which is great, but I do still like to hear people giving the comments, oh, my grandfather used to sing that song, thanks for posting it, things like that. They're always great to receive those. So I get a fair number of comments in a week, which is great, because sometimes playing Celtic music around where I've been from, it seems like the viewers are more on the internet. So you go to a pub or something like that, and you might get a certain number of people in the seats, but really it's been a very rewarding thing to do it through YouTube, I found, because there may only be 100 people in an average city who want to hear Celtic or folk music in an average night, but once you find all those 100 in all the different cities around the world, they can all watch the YouTube at any time. So it seems like a huge number of people,
Yeah, I've definitely found that. Down in, as I've told people in the South, I find the Celtic community seems different than it is, north. In the north, here a lot of people, when they want to go to an Irish pub, they just want to go to a sports bar with an Irish theme. Whereas up in anywhere north, it seems like more people are more interested in actually going to an Irish pub that has Irish music and whatnot.
Yeah, I found that even like there's a trend towards that. Like you'll have a nice Irish pub and you walk in and they're playing top 40 pop music, And I say, well, that's fine music if you that's what you, but if I go to an Irish pub, I want to hear traditional music.
Yeah. Do you attend many pubs to listen to traditional music?
Pardon me.
Do you attend many pubs to listen to traditional music?
Whenever I can get to one, I can. Like in the city I live in right now, there's not even one that really features it on a regular basis, which is too bad. Because there used to be, when I was growing up, there used to be ones that you could count on it. On a Friday or Saturday night, they would have, like I said, that sort of like Celtic rock fusion kind of stuff going on. And now it seems like a lot of them are going the way of just putting on, CDs or iTunes or whatever, pop music, whatever is current.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the bar owners have to make a living, and I understand that, but I think that there in any a city of any size, there should be at least one bar where you could go to hear live music of, Celtic.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that.
So maybe I can be a force for change in that direction.
That's always the hope, right? To work in that direction. Is there anything about as you've been out promoting your music for Celtic music, have you learned anything that you could share about what it is about Celtic music that you love, that your fans love?
I think one of the big things about this, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately, because I started doing a series about why folk music is so great on my blog, which I just started on.
I love that. Actually, I did see that.
And I think one of the big things is that people from around the world all know the same songs, and you can all play them. Like, you might be playing it in a different key, but I'm sure you've seen this, as you've traveled around to different places and done your Celtic Invasions concerts and that. Like, the people know the same songs, which is really great. I mean, it's a great way to communicate with other people across, national boundaries, age differences, and things like that, and also with the past. I mean, past generations. So I think as you get a little bit older, you become a bit more aware of your own mortality, and I think folk music is a great thing that just carries on as like this great tradition that you don't necessarily have to be Irish to be part of it. You just respond to that music, and it's very honest, direct music. There's no fakery about it. And so I think that it's a great way to sort of get that sense of the long view of human traditions,
Yeah, definitely. Any final thoughts? Things that you would like to, share about yourself, about your music? Actually, I didn't even talk about your songwriting, because I know you are a songwriter as well, right?
Yeah, and I've been interested in doing some more stuff in the sort of songwriting in that sort of traditional folky sort of arrangement kind of idea, because most of my songwriting before was sort of more in the classic rock, sort of pop rock, kind of like Beatles, Neil Young sort of vein.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in sort of, so maybe the next project that I'm going to look at is finding some of these really old ballads where the melody is lost, and maybe writing melodies to them and things like that, because I've done that now with a couple of traditional like classic poems, like from the Romantic period. And people seem to respond pretty well because they know the poem and now they can sing along to it. And so I was thinking about doing some of that with some of these older ballads collected by, like, the child ballads and things like that, and see if they're anywhere the melody is lost, and see if maybe I can add something to that. So that sounds like a cool project.
Yeah. And I stepping back a bit, this interview, I'm realizing immediately that I am totally have a lot to work on. So my apologies to you and to the people who are watching. But Butcher's Boy was your latest album, is that correct?
Yeah.
And tell me about that. Tell me what inspired the album, and I think there's a track called Butcher's Boy. Is that an original or a traditional?
That's a traditional one. I believe it was, I think whenever I first learned it, I thought it was Irish, but then I since found out that I think it was actually English first, and then became popular in Ireland. So that song is one of those sort of darker ones, where at the end the female ends up pregnant out of wedlock and then hangs herself, I think is the idea. And the butcher boy is the one who got her in that predicament. So it's not exactly super uplifting in that way, but it has like a toe tapping rhythm combination. So I've always been attracted to those darker songs, and I know you can sympathize with that a little bit. Like murder ballads or things like that, and so some people look at that and say, well, how can you get pleasure out of listening to that kind of music? But I think there's something, it's something that you almost never hear about in modern music, is death, and I mean that's a big part of life, everybody dies.
Yeah, true.
Folk music is all full of it. There's so many different songs that involve death or the possibility of it, so I think that's one of the things that attracts me. Is I think it presents a more full representation of what life is like. There's love, there's drinking, there's sex, there's war, there's death. Like everything comes in to folk music. So I think I like that idea.
Yeah.
And so the album doesn't really have anything to do other than that it's songs that I was sort of obsessed with for a while, and so I just collected them all up. And these are songs I really wanted to record. So with my my previous folk album, there was more of a theme. It was all songs of parting. So the parting glass, like saying farewell to a country or to a lover or whatever. But this time it's more just a collection of songs that sort of I was interested in recording at the moment.
So do you theme a lot of your albums then, or is that?
Pardon me?
I guess. Well, I guess this one was the previous two albums that you did. Were those themed as well? I mean, I know Parting Glass you said, but the one before that.
Parting Glass was themed. The one before it was called New Old Songs, and it wasn't themed, okay, other than just that those are songs that I really loved and wanted to record. So I guess as I collect new songs as I'm going, listening to different artists and things like that, listening to your podcast, I'll hear a song that really turns my ear, and then all of a sudden I'll want to learn that one, and so I'll add that to my next CD probably. It's just sort of, I'm always cycling through songs, and I usually put up everything that I learn. I usually put it up on my YouTube channel, and so my favorite ones, the ones that I still play, months after I learn them, those will be the ones that'll make it onto the next album usually.
Ah, cool. Are you working on a new album? What's coming up for you?
Not currently. I just put out the last one in the spring, so I guess I'm looking ahead to it. Now that I've moved back home, I have access to. My father-in-law has a really good, well-insulated wood shop, and I have my eye on it as a recording space. Because the previous albums I did them in my apartment, which, as people can imagine, causes some problems in terms of noise control. So it would be, some days I just couldn't record because of noise going on and things like that. So if I could have a dedicated spot where I don't have to take down my equipment every night would be nice too.
Yeah.
And my wife would be there, put it away. But so yeah, that would be great to have that a space that would just be dedicated towards that, and at least in the evenings. And I am sort of, I always have my eye on the next project, but probably not for a little while anyway.
Do you have any plans for the any songs that you expect to be on the next one?
That's a good question. I have my eye on putting a few more of those really old, like the ballads that were collected by F.S. Child or F.J. Child. One of those really old, you got ones from the UK and things like that. Some of the really old ones, and see what I can do to sort of make them a bit more accessible and things like that. Like maybe modernize the English a little bit, so that people can understand what's going on. Like there's one that I really love, the Twa Corbies, the Two Crows. And I was thinking, like, I love it, and I know what it means because I looked up what the lyrics all mean, but, average people listening to it might not be able to understand all that Scots dialect. So, things like that, like just modernizing them a bit so that people can sort of catch on to what's exactly going on.
Right.
But to me, I think, it would be cool to put some songs on there that are really old, and yet they still sound like people can get into them a bit more.
Awesome. Okay. Where can people find you online, and do you have any parting words that you'd like to share for your parting of this interview?
Sure. So my website is Jesse, Jesse Ferguson, Ferguson, music.com, and so that's where you can sort of find links at least to all my other things. Now on YouTube, I'm the Bard of Cornwall, all one word, and on Facebook the same thing, BARD of Cornwall. So those are the chief places to find me. I don't think there's anywhere else right now. And now, obviously, if you want to buy a CD, you can find me on iTunes, Amazon, and cdbaby.com. And I think if you go to the CD Baby page, it has links to all the rest of it too. So. And
where can they hear some more of your music?
On your podcast.
On my podcast.
I'm on CelticRadio.net as well. So you can go on there and request them to add to one of their feeds. I think it's Highlander Radio that has, I think, the Butcher Boy in its entirety on there. What else? I do have some representation on CBC Radio, which is the national broadcaster here in Canada too. So CBC Radio 3 has a bunch of my songs that you can request. So those are the places that you might hear occasionally some of my stuff.
Okay.
Now, as for last words, I just wanted to I guess I'll just say thanks to you, Mark, for all that you do. I'm sure you probably are sick of hearing it, but I think there's the world would be a better place for folk musicians if there were about 100 of you out there. So
It
yeah,
probably would, actually. I still long for the idea of being able to take to be able to push a traditional Celtic musician up to the top of the charts on, well, some charts, any charts, which would be totally awesome.
uh, but I just think it's great, and I'm not ashamed to say it, but I've looked to you for inspiration in terms of I think as a folk musician, because the mainstream media is not as aware of what we're doing or not as interested in backing us, you sort of have to make yourself into an institution, sort of like you do a lot of different things. So like one of the things I'm doing now is putting up tutorials on how to play folk music on the YouTube channel and things like that. So if you make yourself, if you get involved in a lot of different kinds of projects, then you can make yourself more of a presence, I guess, in that way. Because I think as folk musicians, most of us anyway, you sort of have to get publicity and get sales and connect with fans on your own steam more. So you've got to be exploring new media, new technology tools and things like that, and always be thinking, how can I get the project pushed forward and things like that. So you have to be I'm sort of have my eyes on the past in terms of the content I'm playing, but I'm looking to the future in terms of ways to get it out there.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Cool.
and connecting with other musicians and promoters like yourself, it's certainly something that's got to happen, I think.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely need to do a little bit more connecting in the future, and if I keep this things going, I want to do another interview with you so that I can, hopefully put together something even better. But this is a good test run, I think, and I think we got a little bit of information. Hopefully people got some nice feedback on who Jesse Ferguson is, and they will head on over to jessefergusonmusic.com to find out more about you. Thanks so much for coming on, and great talking with you, Jesse, at long last.
Yeah, at long last. It seems like we've been talking on through email for so long. It's great to finally have a face-to-face chat.
Yeah, it's been 8 years, probably 7, 8 years.
I think so. Yeah. I think I put out the first album before I started the YouTube channel, and I sent some songs to you. I think right off the bat from that.
Yeah, so maybe even 9. Holy crap! I'm just thinking because the CD came out, the compilation CD came out in 2009, I thought, or 8 or 9. So,
Something like
yeah. That. Anyways, thanks so much, Jesse. You have a great day and start to your day, and hopefully people will visit you again. JesseFerguson.com. Talk
Thanks.
to you soon. Cilantro.
Bye.